Yes, yes, mic check, mic check. What are we doing? Back on the real life stuff. Buzzing. Hello and a big welcome to the channel. I'm the Motorsport Madman and this is the F1 2022 season so far. We're going to have a look back at the first 13 races of the season. It's been a long summer break and I, just like probably every single fan, need a little refresher on what has happened and what to look forward to in the second half of the season. So yeah, I'm just going to go through some of the big moments. Obviously I'm not going to cover every little thing that happened in every single race. It's obviously way too much, but we've just got 3 or 4 slides. They're just going to appear down here in the box. Just 3 or 4 slides per race, just as a little recap, a little refresher, because the summer break is finally over and it's the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend. The first of 3 races in a row, back to back weekends coming up. Belgium, Zandvoort and Monza, I believe. So we're going to look back because it's been a month. It's been a long month. And we need a recap. We need a recap. Like when there's season 2 of a drama or season 2 of any series, in that first episode of season 2 you might get a recap of what's happened in season 1. So that's exactly what this is. We're just going to look back at the first 13 races and pick out the big moments. And yeah, just go through it. Welcome in Ernesto, welcome Chris Poundcoin, and welcome Donald Burt to the stream. Enough of the gaming. We've done enough gaming. We finished on a high last night though, with a podium. But yeah, we put that aside now for a few weeks and concentrate on the real stuff. So yeah, DRS all the way, Ryan. That's what we're going to be looking at. So let's start. The season started in Bahrain. Let's hope this all works as I've planned. We've got a little slideshow down here, just with some screenshots of the big moments. Obviously, a picture of the start of every single race. So yeah, this was the start. This was the start of the season. Was the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix. As you can see, the Ferraris. Just a weird little side note that I noticed when I was going back through this. The Ferrari's almost in like a brown colour scheme there. I think after the first race they changed that shade of red dramatically, because they almost look brown. Look at that, it's a Ferrari down the inside. I think that's Leclerc, Verstappen in the middle and Sainz on the outside there. But yeah, Ferrari's looking brown in Bahrain. I didn't even clock that until I was redoing this. Did they change the order? What do you mean? Did they change the order? Oh, you mean of the races? Like, did they change the order? See, yo, I don't know what happened there. We glitched out. Oh. Are we on? Are we back live? I'm just going to continue as if I am, if I'm still on. It's saying like disconnected, then connected, then disconnected, then connected. I don't know what's going on with it. But let's pretend we're on. Let's pretend we're live. So yeah, we started off in Bahrain. That's obviously a shot at the start of the race. So yeah, let's just go through some of the big moments in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Okay, yeah, I think I'm back on now. It might have glitched out and gone off for a bit, for a few seconds. But I feel like we're back online now. Yeah, Latifi at the back. Oh, of course he is. And then we got this battle straight away in the 2022 season. It was obvious it was going to be Verstappen and Leclerc. There we see Verstappen. I think this is lap 17. I can't remember when I was doing all this. I started writing down what lap all the stuff happened, mate. Let's just say this is lap 17, 19. It doesn't really matter. Let's say the first half of the first half of the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was game on, Verstappen v Leclerc. See there, Verstappen with the DRS. This is a good photograph of DRS, actually. You can actually see, look at the two rear wings. Look at the rear wing of the Ferrari on the right. It's like a brown Ferrari. You see how it's fully closed? You can see all the black at that rear wing. And look at Verstappen's fully open. Fucking thing in here. That's going to do my head in. And you can see Verstappen's rear wing fully open like that, letting the air go through. And that's where DRS gets its name, drag reduction system. So Verstappen's got less drag. That bug's going to do my head in. Verstappen's got less drag, and hence then he's quicker down the straight. So that is a great illustration of DRS. I didn't even clock that, but yeah, people think it's like a speed boost or like NOS or like an engine power thing. It's nothing to do with the engine. It's purely an aerodynamic thing. And yeah, that's a great illustration of it. But yeah, we got Verstappen versus Leclerc straight off the bat. Rob behind, yeah, I'm improving. We're gone, you know, a bit more of a studio look, you know. So we've got the going on. We've got some lights. I mean, the lights go around the room, you know. You can't see, but we're looking like Santa's grotto now around here. But yeah, it's looking good. We got to keep upgrading. You know, upgrade for the second half of the season. The first half of the season's done. We was on a green screen thing. It was a bit dodgy in places. I remember Miami being awful. So we've ditched the green screen and we're going for a bit of a studio mode for the second half of the season. I think it's going to be a lot better, a lot more reliable. I'm not having to worry about the lighting, thinking, oh, is the green screen flickering? Nah, none of that. So yeah, we're just seeing the battle there between Leclerc and Verstappen in Bahrain. So it was straight away, it was obvious this season was going to be Verstappen versus Leclerc. And look at this great big dive bomb there at some point by Verstappen, locking up the front wheels. You love to see it. You know, signs of 2014 there when we had Rosberg v Hamilton. You know, it's like a mirror image. Diving down the inside of turn one. So straight away it was Verstappen versus Leclerc. First race. Then later on in the race, this is like 40 something out of what's Bahrain, 52 laps, something like that. This is later on. Pierre Gasly with the engine fire. You see, there's things like this you forget, like Pierre Gasly's car setting on fire the first race of the season. People forget this stuff. And then it was the Red Bull disaster. This is Max Verstappen retiring from the race with like 3 laps to go. Here he is pulling into the pit lane with 3 laps to go with some kind of engine problem. I don't know if they ever strictly said exactly what went wrong with the car, but yeah, Verstappen retired from the opening race of the season with 2 or 3 laps to go, as did his teammate Sergio Perez. This is Perez spinning on the final lap. This is turn 1 on the final lap, and I don't know if he lost the brake-by-wire system or the engine cut out, but he just spun and that was it, and Perez was out. So both Red Bulls, it was a double DNF for Red Bull in the first race of the season, and it was drama. Those last few laps in Bahrain was utter chaos. Hamilton picked up the pieces and got a podium, but it was Charles Leclerc who led a Ferrari 1-2 in Bahrain. How things have changed. Ferrari started off the season so well, bagging a 1-2. Charles Leclerc from Carlos Sainz, and Hamilton picked up a 3rd place. So the season was off to a very good start for Ferrari and an awful start for Red Bull. Let's go to round 2, which was Saudi Arabia. Another night race. And yeah, this was the start of the Saudi Arabia. As you can see, the Ferrari now is a much brighter shade of red. I didn't clock this, but they must have changed that shade of paint between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, because it's a much more clearer Ferrari red in Saudi Arabia. And again, it was Verstappen Leclerc in Saudi Arabia. They went head to head, but also who went head to head with the 2 Alpines. Look, with the pink Alpines. You see, I'd forgotten that Alpine ran a pink livery in the first 2 races. I was looking back at this going, oh damn, yeah, they did run a bubblegum pink livery for the first 2 races. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, they went hammer, Anton. In the first, I think there was like the first 12 or 14 laps, the Alpines of Alonso and Ocon were battling away, swapping positions every single lap. Yeah, no, I cut out. Sorry, Donald. Yeah, it wasn't your fault. It was me. Something happened with the internet. It went off for 10 seconds or something, so I do apologize for that. Yeah, the races do change round sometimes, but they generally follow the same they follow the same general order. The calendar, sometimes they can swap around and that, but generally speaking, the calendar does follow a certain order. And so yeah, it's not like drastically different season on season. Sorry, that guy just had to be squished. Right, he was doing my head in. So yeah, the Alpines were battling in Saudi Arabia, and Latifi crashed. See, I'd forgotten about this as well. You know, Latifi had a shocking start to the season. I think he crashed in practice, crashed in qualities, like me on the flipping career mode. But yeah, Latifi crashed. That brought out the safety car. We also had Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso conk out both in the pit lane on the same lap, which was a weird thing that happened in Saudi Arabia. And then we got this duel at the end. So this is the 2 races in, and already we know it's Verstappen versus Leclerc for the championship. Another great illustration of DRS, you know. Quiz time. Which one out of them two's got DRS? You can clearly tell it's Charles Leclerc with that rear wing flap wide open, battling Max Verstappen in the closing stages. I think it was a hell of a last sort of 7 or 8 laps. They were swapping positions every single lap, last 7 or 8 laps. And you just see, look, Verstappen locking up. They had this weird game of cat and mouse into the final corner because they didn't want to be the one ahead going into the final corner, because then the one behind gets the DRS. So it was this game of this game of cat and mouse that they were playing, and it was epic. It was really good. Eventually, Verstappen did get the job done and made it stick, and he won. You know, Verstappen won in Saudi Arabia, and so kind of made it 1-1, even though Leclerc was still ahead in the championship because Verstappen didn't finish the first race. But yeah, Verstappen kind of made it 1-1 on the wins. You know, Leclerc won round 1 and Verstappen won round 2. So on to Australia then, and another very interesting race, round 3. We had Leclerc on pole. You see there, Verstappen is again front row. Leclerc, Verstappen, and yeah, what happened here is Carlos Sainz spun off on lap 2 and got beached in the gravel. This was the start of Ferrari's problems. This was where it just started to unfold for Ferrari. Sainz had messed it up in qualifying. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it ended up where he was like 13th or 14th. He was trying to make up positions. He spun off and ended up beaching it in the gravel on lap 2. And it was like, ooh, you know, maybe it's not all plain sailing for Ferrari. And certainly not plain sailing for Charles Leclerc. This is just a shot of Perez going round the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Obviously, the Mercedes wasn't amazing. It didn't have great pace in the opening part of the season. And Perez just sailed round the outside into the fast, is it to 9-10? It might be 8-9 now. They've deleted a couple of corners. But yeah, into the fast left-right. Perez round the outside, a great move. You know, might be move of the race. And then straight after that, Vettel put it in the wall. Vettel missed the first 2 races because he had COVID. And then he come back. He was out of practice. You know, he'd only done a few laps. I think there was a problem with the car in practice as well. So Vettel had hardly any running, and then this was inevitable. He lost the rear of the car and boom, into the wall. Just like me in my career mode, Vettel was out of the race. That created a safety car, and on the back of the safety car. So this is at the restart, and they're absolute wheel to wheel again for 3 races in a row. Verstappen and Leclerc at the restart of the race after that safety car, and look at that. I think Leclerc just about held on here. Verstappen was trying round the outside at turn 1, but Leclerc held on, and then another Red Bull technical issue. Now, I was saying when it got to the middle part of the season, I've been saying for a few weeks, I've never seen, and I stand by it, I've never seen championship contending cars have such poor reliability, and this is where it all sort of begun. You know, we had the double DNF for Red Bull in Bahrain, and then we had Sainz out and Verstappen out in Australia. And this put Charles Leclerc way ahead in the championship. Leclerc then wins, gives Leclerc the easy victory in Australia, and goes way ahead in the championship. I don't know exactly what the gap was, but I think it was like 40 or more point gap in the championship at this point. You know, Verstappen had failed to finish 2 out of the first 3 races, and Leclerc had won 2 out of the first 3. You know, I was saying at this point, I was saying, you know, it's Leclerc's to lose. Like, I was saying it's like 3 rounds, but ignorant parking. You can't park there, sir. Oh, it's gone. The camera. Wait, let me switch these off. I knew the camera would do this. It can't handle the lights. Let me. It keeps blurring me out because I've got the lights in the background. Let me. There we go. Yeah, it keeps blurring me out because of the lights, so I'll switch them off for a bit. But yeah, I have to figure out why it's doing that. But yeah, so Leclerc wins 2 out of the first 3, and Verstappen retires from 2 out of the first 3, and then we go to Imola. Round 4. Damp start. And Verstappen, looks like it was Verstappen from pole. I can't quite remember, but I do remember this incident in the first chicane. Ricciardo hitting Carlos Sainz and spinning him off. And I can't remember whether it was... I think Sainz got beached in the gravel on the back of this. And it was just like 2 races in succession where it had all gone wrong for Carlos Sainz. You know, in Australia, he didn't last 2 laps. In Imola, he didn't last 2 corners. Brutal. And it was all Daniel Ricciardo's fault as well. Just understeered into him. That also got damaged. That incident also saw Fernando Alonso retiring from the race with this side pod damage. Well, I remember saying in the commentary at the time, saying it's cracked like an eggshell, that side pod. So it was quite a chaotic first lap in Imola. I think they called it, what did they call it? The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Yeah, not sure about that. It's Imola to me. But yeah, Alonso was out as well. And then later on in the race, obviously there's a lot of stuff happened, but I have to trim it down to the big highlights. This is like 15 laps to go. And Leclerc, he hit that sausage curb. I remember calling it out before it happened, saying, why is he slapping that curb on the inside in the chicane? And sure enough, he hit that curb too hard at one point, spun the car around, he hit the wall, managed to keep going, broke his front wing, so he had to pit. He had to pit for a new front wing, but was able to continue and recovered it back to 6th place. That's him just overtaking Sebastian Vettel for, I think, 7th at the time. He ended up finishing 6th, did Charles Leclerc, but it was an easy win for Max Verstappen, who pretty much led from start to finish, and got his championship back on really. And it was the first mistake from Charles Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz with back-to-back disasters, and Leclerc with the mistake gave Verstappen an easy win. And so now at this point they're 2-2 in wins. I mean, Verstappen was still way behind in the championship. That race also saw Lando Norris get a podium for McLaren as well. Right, now I've got to switch to a different slideshow, so bear with me. And it was Miami, round 5. Let me just see if this works. It should slide. Yes, we are sliding. So this was the 2022 Miami Grand Prix. This was round 5. So Leclerc had 2 wins, Verstappen had 2 wins, and we went to America for the first ever Miami Grand Prix. And look at that, you can see, I think it's Leclerc leading into turn 1 and Verstappen and Sainz side by side. I think you see Hamilton there locking up, almost went into the back of Perez as well in turn 1. But yeah, it was quite an eventful start. We then had Verstappen hunt down Charles Leclerc, and I think this is like I think it's just cropped out of the picture, but I feel like this is lap 12, 14, and Verstappen overtook fair and square Leclerc, again going head to head. This is like the 4th race, or 4 out of the first 5 races Verstappen and Leclerc gone head to head, Imola aside. And again, Verstappen gets the better of Leclerc, goes down the inside into turn 1, and gets the lead after 14 laps. Then this was the big incident in the race. This was Lando Norris tripping over Pierre Gasly. This was in the middle of the race, well, towards the end actually, I think. But this was the big drama of the race. This was a silly incident. I think Pierre Gasly was with a damaged car and was just crawling back to the pits. I don't know whether his engine was down on power, or I'm not quite sure what had happened to Gasly, but he was on like a limp home mode, let's say. And Norris just come up, and it was just one of them clumsy ones where he doesn't really know where he's going and just like trips over him and caused a huge incident. Obviously everyone was okay, but yeah, big incident there in the Miami Grand Prix. Yeah, look at the damage there. And yeah, the 2 Mercedes piled the pressure on Bottas with like 5 or 6 laps to go, and Bottas nearly put it in the wall there. That's Bottas running wide and letting the 2 Mercedes through. That was just big pressure on Valtteri Bottas, and that's that final hairpin 2 corners from the end of the lap, and he's just gone in too deep, and I think he just scraped the wall and let the Mercedes through. He cracked under the pressure, did Valtteri Bottas. And then we see this. Now, this is right at the end of the race. This is Sergio Perez going for an absolute dive bomb on Carlos Sainz. It doesn't pay off. Sainz gets the switch back, but Sergio Perez on the full send. In fact, that picture, I've tagged it as Perez full send in capitals, because that was, I remember it. I remember him going full send in Miami. Didn't pay off, but you've got to try it. And then this, I think, was at the start of the start of the last lap. And this is Mick Schumacher crashing into Sebastian Vettel. They are friends off track, and that was a bit of an awkward moment. This is on board with Ocon, and a bit of an awkward one as Mick Schumacher just fully slams into the side of Sebastian Vettel. At that point, I'm thinking, at this point in the season, I'm thinking, oh, Mick. I'm like, oh God, Mick, why? But yeah, that's pretty much it for Miami. Ended up, Verstappen dominated it in the end. Once he got past Leclerc on lap 12 or 14, whatever it was, he went on to win, comfortably. Max Verstappen wins round 5 in Miami, and then we head to Spain. Now, this was a dramatic race. I remember this. This was a dramatic one. So now Verstappen's 3-2 up on the victories, and he's catching back up in the championship now. And then we get Spain, round 6. So, as you can see, I think that's Leclerc heading into turn 1 first, with Verstappen and Perez, and that's George Russell, I think, on the outside. George Russell had a mega race here, I remember. So yeah, that's turn 1 in Spain. And then this incident on lap 1, seemingly ruined Hamilton's race. There was contact between Kevin Magnussen and Lewis Hamilton. I think this is turn 4 on the apex of turn 4. Magnussen was on the outside, and they just clip like that, and it's enough to give Lewis a puncture. It's enough to send Kevin into the gravel. They were both able to keep going, and you will see that they did more than keep going. It was better than that. And then we've got this silly error from Carlos Sainz. This is like lap 10 or something like that. Lap 7 actually, I think. So this is early on, and Sainz spins off at turn 4, the same place where this is the same gravel trap as Kevin. This is the same gravel trap as this. So Kevin's gone off there, but he's been forced off. But Carlos Sainz, on his own steam, made a mistake and spun off. So now this is like 3 races in a row where Carlos Sainz has been in a gravel trap. You know, this is not good going at this point. I remember being like, Carlos Sainz again. But then Max Verstappen made exactly the same mistake like 2 or 3 laps later, and he was in the gravel at turn 4. It was a mad few laps. They were all losing it. I don't know whether it was a wind, whether it was like a gust of wind situation. I do not know. But both of them ended up in the gravel. And the exit of turn 4 there. Then we had this great battle. The first time I'd ever seen George Russell and Max Verstappen go wheel to wheel was in the Spanish Grand Prix this year. And it was a great battle. Russell pushing him off wide. It was a good one. And then we get to about, what, lap 28, something like that. And this is Charles Leclerc retiring with an engine failure. Retiring from the Spanish Grand Prix, and now the tables really are turning. Now we've got to round 6, the tables really are turning as Charles Leclerc pulls into the pit lane in the Spanish Grand Prix. And this then became the battle for the lead. This is Verstappen and Russell fighting for the lead of the Spanish Grand Prix. Since Leclerc had retired from the lead, George Russell, I remember being absolutely buzzing about this. George Russell was fighting for the lead of the 2022 Spanish Grand Prix, and I was loving every second of it. This was the moment, I think, where Verstappen finally got through, about halfway through the race. But yeah, he did well. And then this is towards the end. Hamilton, despite the contact on the first lap, despite the puncture, ended up going round the outside of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, and I think he ended up finishing 4th, did Lewis Hamilton, in this. But from the position, you know, he was at the back by a good dozen seconds at the end of lap 1. So how Hamilton got this back to like P4 at the end was an incredible drive, and something that was somewhat overlooked at the time. You know, I remember calling it at the time, saying, you know, it's been a hell of a race for Lewis Hamilton. Can John Hound comment? As far as I know, he can, yeah. As far as I know, I don't know. Unless someone slung him out, I don't know. I'll have to look after the stream at like who's banned or whatever, but I'll sort it out after. Welcome to the stream, Ian 06 2006. Right, so that was at the closing stages. Hamilton round the outside of Carlos Sainz after coming back from the back of the grid. So mega job by Hamilton, but it was Verstappen who won again. I can't remember what the championship standings were after the Spanish Grand Prix, but it must have been pretty close. You know, Leclerc with a great start to the season, winning 2 out of the first 3, but then Verstappen and Red Bull were just dominating at this point. You know, by this point they'd won, what, 3 in a row? You know, they'd won Imola, Miami and Spain back to back to back, and I think even Verstappen had won the sprint race in Imola as well. You know, so I don't know if this was the point where Verstappen took the lead of the championship, but it must have been close by by this point. I've no idea, Chris. I don't know. I didn't do it. You know, I didn't ban it. If he has been banned, I don't even know if he has been banned. But if he has, I've got nothing to do with that. But yeah, I'll have to have a look into it. I don't know. I might be able to go into the settings later on and have a look at that. Because yeah, bit of a random one. Anyway, we then went to Monaco off the back of that. So remember, Verstappen's now in full flight, Red Bull are now in full flight, and it's starting to fall apart for Ferrari. And Monaco, I remember this stream. This race was delayed by over an hour because the weather was atrocious. I remember being here, sat here. I was hungover as well. I remember the stream. I was hungover, I sat here, and the race was delayed by an hour, and I was just like, please, just please get the race underway. It was a nightmare. They tried to start the race, then they red flagged it. This is everyone coming back into the pits after the red flag. They waited for an hour, they come back out, they did a few laps behind the safety car. They eventually got it underway. I don't remember much from the first portion of the race. It was, and then the track started to dry out and people were going on to intermediates, and it was about tyre strategy. And what happened is Sainz was able to go straight from the extreme wets, because you've got 3 tyres in Formula 1. Well, you've got more than 3 tyres, but what I'm trying to say is you've got extreme wets, which is, you know, when the conditions are like this. That's extreme wets. Then you've got intermediates for when it's just damp. So it's like a halfway house. Intermediates just when it's damp. And then you've got slicks, which are like this. Now there's different types of slicks, right? But anyway, this is the point. Sainz, instead of going full wets, then as the track dried out, then pitting for intermediates, and then it dried, then it goes bone dry, and then slicks. Sainz was able to go from extreme wets straight onto slicks, and that's what got him ahead of Verstappen. Perez pulled a similar trick and was able to get ahead of Sainz. So it ended up where it should have been Verstappen and Leclerc at the front, but it ended up where Sainz and Perez were smarter with the tyres, and so it ended up Perez P1, Sainz P2, Verstappen P3, Leclerc P4, and that was purely just due to the strategy in the first half of the race. So yeah, that was just due to tyres. Then there was a huge incident with Mick Schumacher. Look at that, you can just see the rear portion of the car there, the gearbox, the rear axle and the rear wing of Mick Schumacher's car. A huge incident. He walked away from it absolutely fine. I think this was like lap 26 or something like that. But yeah, Mick with a huge incident in the Monaco Grand Prix. Something I'd not forgotten about, but when I was reminded of it, I was like, oh yeah, wow, he did have a big incident in Monaco. The car in 2 pieces. You don't often see that. Yeah, look at this. I had to include this heroic save by Zhou Guanyu trying to overtake Yuki Tsunoda down into what's that chicane called? Well, down to the chicane at the bottom of the hill, trying the big dive, and the rear end stepped out. He did not crash from this. He saved it with full Tokyo drift mode for Zhou Guanyu. I had to include that in because that's mega. What a save. Cut and shut job, mate. Unbelievable. And then this was the closing stages. This was like 5 laps to go, 6 laps to go, and look at the top 4 there. That's Perez, Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc. And I think Leclerc was on pole, should have won it. Leclerc was fuming to be at the back of this little train. But what a battle between the top 4 we got in the last few laps in Monaco. Look at how close it was. This is the top 3 battling in the last couple of laps in the Monaco Grand Prix. So it was a long day. I remember that was like a 3-hour plus stream, including the delay and everything, but it was worth it in the end. We got a grandstand finish, and it was a great race, and it was Sergio Perez who crossed the line to win the Monaco Grand Prix. I think it's his 3rd victory in Formula 1. And yeah, Perez won in Monaco, so he kept the Red Bull streak going. They'd now won the last 4 races at Red Bull, and Charles Leclerc was fuming with 4th place. We then went to Baku, Azerbaijan, and yeah, this was round 8. This was round 8 of the season in Azerbaijan. So let's have a look. This was a lock-up from Charles Leclerc, side by side with Max Verstappen into turn 1. And this is like lap 10, something like that. Lap 10, lap 15. And Carlos Sainz, his engine cut out, and he was out of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix early doors. And I think this was the moment where it was like, it's not Carlos's year. It ain't Carlos Sainz's year. You know, this is like his 3rd DNF in the last 4 races or something like that. And I think it was at this point, it was kind of like, it ain't Sainz's year. You know, he was out right at the beginning of the race, which then left the 2 Red Bulls to fight it out. In fact, at the beginning there, where you saw Leclerc locking up on the outside, it wasn't Verstappen on the inside, it was Perez. Perez, I think, had got a front row and led into turn 1. That's right, Perez led into turn 1 and led the first portion of the race until Verstappen caught up with him, and Verstappen passed him into turn 1 in the first half of the race, let's say. Then Ferrari's woes got worse. The engine blow up from Leclerc. Unbelievable. Spain, engine blow up. Monaco, bad strategy, P4, when he should have won. Baku, engine blow up. And now things are fully in Red Bull's favour. Now it's collapsing for Ferrari at this point. The whole championship is collapsing at this point when Leclerc's engine blows up in Azerbaijan. Absolute disaster. This is something I'd forgotten. The Hamilton and Pierre. Who remembers the Hamilton versus Gasly battle in Azerbaijan for 4th place? Because I certainly don't. But what a race these two had. Pierre Gasly, I think, finished 5th. I think Vettel finished 6th. You know, something I'd completely forgotten about. But Verstappen won again. And this was like, what, Red Bull's 5th win in a row? 4th, 5th win in a row? You know, Verstappen had won Imola, Miami, Spain. Then Perez wins in Monaco. Then Verstappen wins in Baku. And now Red Bull are on top of the world. And Ferrari have had an absolute nightmare. I think both cars were out before lap 30 in Azerbaijan. And absolute mess at this point. So that is it for that slideshow. Bear with me whilst I load in this one, because round 9 was Canada. So let's have a look at the 2022 Canadian Grand Prix. It was the Alonso front row weekend. This was where Alonso slapped it on the front row. I was going insane for that one. I love an underdog. Well, you can't really call Fernando Alonso an underdog, but perhaps in the car he's driving, it was epic. And oh, no worries, Chris. I only just read that comment right now. He wasn't on last night because he's a bit poorly. Well, Chris, have a look at the end of the stream. because all the times I've crashed have all been worth it, mate. Because in Austria, I pulled off a big result. Anyway, that's a gaming thing. We're done with the gaming thing. But yeah, this was the 2022 Canadian Grand Prix. Obviously, Verstappen with the mega start. He's already got like a big lead going into turn 2. But yeah, this was Canada, and Perez was out early doors. So, like we're saying, this is the worst reliability I have seen from championship contenders, from Red Bull's side and Ferrari's side. The both of them. I tell you what, if Mercedes would have had a half decent car at the beginning of the year, they'd have walked it. They'd have walked it. The amount of errors, the engine blow-ups, mechanical failures, brake fires, brake-by-wire issues, it's just endless. I think I was saying I need to research this. How many times out of these first 13 races have both Red Bulls and both Ferraris finished the race? I'd say 3 times out of 13 races have all 4 of those cars seen the checkered flag. I've got to look into that because it's just mad. And we have both Ferraris DNF in Baku. Then we get to Canada and Perez doesn't make it past lap 10. It's just podium, Chris. But yeah, Perez was out, and then unfortunately after a mega job in qualifying, Mick Schumacher was out as well, and I think he was like 7th at this point. And to date, to this point of the season right now, Mick hadn't scored a single point. In fact, Mick hadn't got near a single point in his career, and he was well in the points here. I think Haas had qualified 5th and 6th. And, Mick was running like 6th or 7th in the race. And then the engine cuts out and it's game over. And I was gutted. I was gutted for Mick Schumacher in Canada. Then this is a battle between Hamilton and Verstappen. I think towards the end of the race. This was when the Mercedes was starting to gather a bit of pace and starting to challenge the guys at the front. I think Hamilton was in the top 2 or 3 positions in this race, and Verstappen had to pass him with the DRS. See the DRS open there, and it was in the late stages of the race that Verstappen actually passed Hamilton. And so, do you see the Danny Rick interview? Yeah. I said to you, HD might lose his seat. Sad to see. Who's HD? HD might lose his seat. But that's going to be so obvious, isn't it? I can't think of it right now. Harley Davidson? Home Depot? I don't know. Right. But, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But we're going through this season. We're nearly there. We're at round 9 of 13. But, yeah. Yeah. HD. Who's HD? Anyway, I'll figure it'd be obvious. So HD. No, that's not a driver. That there ain't no driver with HD initials. Right. This is Verstappen passing Hamilton in the closing stages, and this is Yuki Tsunoda in the wall, which caused a safety car, which caused the traffic to back up, and Sainz should have won this. This was the one that Sainz should have won. Sainz was on the fresh tyres after the pit stop because this caused chaos. I remember Tsunoda been in it, and Sainz was in P2 but on fresh tyres. Verstappen was in the lead on old tyres, and Verstappen held on. Verstappen held on, and despite the pressure from Carlos Sainz, Verstappen won again. At this point, he must be pulling out a 20-30 point lead in the championship. It was all going well, and then we go to the British. Apologies if some of these flags are weird. I couldn't set up the flags right on the thing, but I'm sure you forgive me. Yeah, so this was the British Grand Prix, and this was utter chaos. This was the first attempt at the start. Now, there was 2 starts to the British Grand Prix because of this. Is this the moment of the season? Like, in a bad way? in a bad way. Is this the moment of the season? Zhou Guanyu upside down in turn 1. Unbelievable. I mean, how he walked away from this was quite staggering. One of the biggest incidents I've ever seen in Formula 1. Car tumbling through the gravel. Luckily, he got out. He was alright. He raced again the following week. Unbelievable safety standards in Formula 1. So yeah, that caused another big delay. So I'd had the big delay in Monaco, and then I had a big delay here. This was over an hour delay after that Zhou Guanyu crash in turn 1. But eventually, they get the race restarted again. They just restarted from the beginning. They were like, right, we're going to delete that, and we're gonna go again. And they restarted it as a proper grid start. Could only work out as a Haas driver. That's what it might have. That's it, Chris. Even if Anto didn't mean it to be Haas driver, that actually makes sense, Chris. You've gone above and beyond, because interview I said to you, a Haas driver may lose his seat. Sad to see. It makes sense, Chris. He didn't even mean for him to put that. He didn't even mean it, but it makes sense, Chris. I rate it. But yeah, this was the second attempt at the British Grand Prix when they got it back underway, and it was an almighty scrap. Look at that, 4 wide into turn 3. Then I'd forgotten about this. So Sainz led, right, and made a mistake and let Verstappen through, battling down to Stowe. I'd forgotten about this. Is early on. This is like lap 8, lap 10. So Sainz led, mucked it up, got it back, all the rest of it, and then this is towards the end. Yeah, the OCD. Probably got it right. Yeah, it sounds about right, that, Anto. And then we got the closing stages of the British Grand Prix, and it was epic. These are the 2 Ferraris going into Woodcote. Is that what's that corner called? Brooklands. This is the 2 Ferraris going into Brooklands side by side for the lead. The closing stages of the British Grand Prix was epic, and then this is arguably the moment of the season. Zhou Guanyu upside down is probably the most dramatic scenario of the season so far, but this is the moment of the season. This is the through goes Hamilton moment in the British Grand Prix. The double overtake by Lewis Hamilton. There he is, diving down the inside, coming out of the final corner. And he went from 5th to 2nd or something like that. Yeah, 4th to 2nd in one move. Epic stuff at the end of the British Grand Prix, and it just carried on. Look at these battles. This is 2 corners later. Perez had got back past Lewis. Leclerc was on the outside. It was just an epic scrap, these top 3 or 4 positions. See, again, he's going round the outside of Charles Leclerc. This is for 2nd place again. What a race the British Grand Prix was. And it ended up with a Carlos Sainz victory. His first ever win in Formula 1. Carlos Sainz at the 2022 British Grand Prix. So, amazing race. Sorry about these flags. These are awful. But yeah, then we went to round 11. Home race for Red Bull Racing in Austria. This is Verstappen leading down to turn 1. That's the start of the Austrian Grand Prix. And then we had this incident at turn 4. It's always a dodgy one. If you're on the outside in turn 4 in Austria, you're likely to get tagged. And this was Russell tagging Sergio Perez out of the race. I don't think Perez continued after this. Just tripping over each other. We've seen it before with Hamilton and Albon a couple of years prior. Being on the outside of turn 4 when you're battling for position is not the place to be. And Russell and Perez collided on that one. We then had an almighty scrap with Leclerc, Verstappen, and Leclerc had the upper hand. Leclerc with a full dive bomb here down here. This is down at turn 4 as well. Then we had Hamilton stuck behind both Hasses. He had to really scrap to pass Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen. This is for like 5th place or something like that. And then we got battling like this. This was really good in the Austrian Grand Prix. I mean, this is 5 cars all fighting for position. This is like a battle for 6th or something like that. Just epic. I mean, who is in this battle? You've got, well, I don't know if the Alpine is Alonso or Ocon. It's kind of hard to tell from this camera angle. But we've got Schumacher, Magnussen, Bottas, Norris, let's say Alonso, and epic battle there. 5-car fight, and this is the new regulations that have done this, that are allowing the cars to race so much closer and produce great entertainment like this. Again, Leclerc, I think what had happened is they were out of sync on the strategy, so Leclerc had to overtake Verstappen like 3 times. He'd overtake him, and then in the pit stops, Verstappen would get back in front, so then Leclerc had to catch him up, overtake him again. This is, I think, he's overtaking him here for the 2nd or 3rd time in the race. Leclerc this was one of the strongest races for Leclerc. But then Ferrari. I mean, it's only when you do a video like this you just realise how bad it's been in terms of reliability and problems and mistakes. Carlos Sainz with the engine fire at the Austrian Grand Prix. This is towards the end. This is 10 laps to go, something like that. With the engine fire, I can't. It's just this bad luck, and then there's this. This is virtually every single race, something going wrong. Unbelievable. Carlos Sainz again in the wars, and this was Leclerc across the finishing line to win and to finally end the Red Bull domination that they'd had. Red Bull had won 5 or 6 races in a row coming into this one. Well, Sainz had won the British Grand Prix, and then Leclerc wins in Austria. So Ferrari started to turn it back around a little bit. Getting towards the, this is the middle of the season now. There's only 2 more to go until we reach present day. But yeah, that was Leclerc with a really strong race, beating Verstappen fair and square in Austria as well. Verstappen has got all his fans there. Sea of Orange in Austria. Verstappen's won this race 2 or 3 times, and Leclerc beat him fair and square. So great race. And then, excuse the flag, I mean, I don't even know what that is, but it's France. We then went to round 12, the French Grand Prix. I think that is, so look at that, you can see Sainz right at the back there. That's because the engine penalty you got because of the fire in Austria. So just out of the frying pan into the fryer for Carlos Sainz. He just can't catch a break. But so we got Leclerc at the front there with Verstappen. I think that's Hamilton there in 3rd. This is the start of the French Grand Prix. And then this, it looks like, see, I've forgotten, but this looks like Verstappen hunting down and passing Charles Leclerc in France. No, I tell you what it was. Let me go back. I know what it was now. I've figured it. This is Verstappen putting big pressure on Leclerc in the first half dozen laps of the race. I remember this. Leclerc was under big pressure. This is Verstappen trying to go round the outside. What do they call that corner? Le Boussier or something like that. It sounds like a posh shoe. This is Verstappen putting heavy pressure on Leclerc. And then they pit, and Leclerc comes out in the cold tyres and pulls this out of the bag. There's 3 moments of the season, isn't there, so far? You've got Zhou Guanyu upside down, you've got Hamilton with the double overtake, and you've got Leclerc stuffing it in the wall on lap 18 in the French Grand Prix. I think they're the biggest moments of the season. Just when they need, Ferrari needed to win this race. Leclerc had just got that great result in Austria, and you're thinking, oh, championship's back on. I was thinking, here we go. Ferrari are not done. Ferrari are not dead and buried yet. And then he goes and buries it in the wall, ironically. Goes and buries it in the wall in lap 18 in France. And you can't be making these mistakes and winning championships. This is the thing. This is the difference between Leclerc and Verstappen. They're both phenomenal talents. But I feel like Leclerc's just got that 1 or 2 mistakes in him per season where he will just stuff it in the wall. I feel like you rarely see Verstappen make an unforced error, but you will see Leclerc make 2 or 3 during a season. And I feel like that's the difference. And it was big. This was a big moment of the season, and it sort of put Verstappen out of reach. This DNF was massive. It made the gap in the championship probably from 30 points to like 50, 60 points. It was a massive swing. It was a mess. This was Sainz fighting Perez towards the end of the race, and then Ferrari made a horrible strategy error and pitted Carlos Sainz when they shouldn't have. They should have kept him out. I remember this being a whole Twitter meltdown with this. The Ferrari strategy boys had absolute brain fart and pitted him and give away a podium. Sainz was on the charge, and they even said it in commentary at the time, like, a Ferrari just thrown away a podium here. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts that they pit him with that's like 5 laps to go or something. And they pit him. And then you had George Russell. This is 3 laps to go. George Russell, cheeky on the VSC, catches Sergio Perez napping and boom, straight past George Russell with a great cheeky little move there. But Verstappen wins again. How many times he said it? This is Verstappen's what? 7th win in 12 races. 7th or 8th win in 12. At this point, it's starting to become an unassailable lead in the championship. I think at this point it's like 70-point gap or something like that. And then we go to what was the last race 3.5, 4 weeks ago in France. Why has it come up with that? Not France. What am I about? In Hungary. I was like, oh my god, I've got the image wrong. Ignore what I'm saying. Look at the picture. Hungary was round 13. The Hungarian Grand Prix was the last race before the summer break, and this was the highlights. So this was the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix. It was George Russell on pole. It was George Russell on pole position. What a lap that was. That's one of the highlights of the season as well. You can add that in. Zhou Guanyu upside down. Hamilton with the double overtake. Leclerc in the wall in France. Then the George Russell pole position. I think they're the 4 big bullet points of the season. The George Russell pole position was next level in Hungary. And then this is Hamilton versus Russell. I think this is for 3rd or 4th. Nice little battle with the Brits there. And then this was when Russell finally lost the lead. I think he held on for 31 laps, George Russell. So he wasn't just a flash in the pan. He didn't just get pole position and then by lap 1 he's like 4th. No, he held on to the lead for 31 laps. But this is Charles Leclerc eventually running round the outside of Russell with an aggressive move on lap 31 down into turn 1. And this looks like Verstappen and Leclerc wheel to wheel. Wheel to wheel again in Hungary. and then Verstappen spins. I remember this. This is coming towards the end of the race now. This is like 45 out of 60. Verstappen spins and has to pass Leclerc again. So Leclerc got the lead from that, but Verstappen carries on 2-3 laps later, passes Leclerc again, like taking the mick at this point. Like Verstappen could spin and still win the race. Unbelievable. And also the two Mercs battled. I think this was like a battle for the podium between the two Mercedes boys as well. Mercedes starting to come on strong now. I think they finished second and third in this race. I feel like they were second and third, Mercedes, in this race. So they are ones to watch in these last 9 races of the season. But yeah, I feel like that's about it. And that is Max Verstappen across the line to win yet again in 2022. What a season it has been so far for Red Bull and Max Verstappen. And yeah, just about an hour, man. Yeah, just about an hour stream, and that's what I was thinking it was going to be. So yeah, that is where we're up to. This is the schedule for this weekend. It is the Belgian Grand Prix. We are back. So that's the little review. You've had your catch up. You've had your recap. Anyone who's watching this on repeat, you as well. You've had this. You've had your little reset and recalibration ahead of the weekend's racing. So this is my schedule for the weekend. We do a little bit of a preview because I've still got to run through team by team and all that. So we're back on 12:30 tomorrow afternoon for the preview, and then straight into practice 1. Then I'll be back live 4 p.m. Well, 5 to 4 for practice 2. Saturday the qualifying's at 3 o'clock. I'll be live at 10 to 3 for that. Then for the Sunday, for the Grand Prix on Sunday, it does say that I'm coming live 10 minutes before the race there, but I might come live a little bit before that, just to give people a chance to get into the stream before the race starts. I'm thinking about coming live at 1:30 for the race starting at 2, just to I feel like a lot of people miss the start, and then I feel like a lot of people join like lap 20, lap 30 or something like that. So it might just give a chance for YouTube to get me on the list with the other live watch-alongs before the race starts if I come live a little bit earlier. So I'll probably be live at 1:30 for the race on Sunday. But yeah, that is about it, guys. We've had our little season recap. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do drop me a like if you have. I'll be back 12:30 tomorrow for some on-track action. Even if it's just practice, I'm absolutely buzzing. It's been a long summer break, and I cannot wait to get back to seeing some cars on track and talking about it. So yeah, please do drop me a like if you enjoyed it. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe as well, because as you can see, we're live now for every single qualifying and every single Grand Prix from the Formula 1 World Championship. But yeah, that's it from me. Catch you tomorrow. Formula 1 is back, baby. Formula 1 is back. It's been a long summer break. We've done some gaming. We've had some fun. But we've now had the little recap. And it's time to get on with the second half of the season. Right, guys. Catch you tomorrow. And peace out. Bring back the Formula 1. Get it. Cannot wait for these 9 races. And just watch out for Mercedes, because they're about to pull on madness. See you later, guys.